Welcome back to another episode of Already Everything. I'm Erin Lyons.
I'm Adewale Adewale.
And so today we do have a bit of a controversial topic, but one that definitely needs to be discussed. So we're going to be talking about the differences between spirituality and religion. And just full disclaimer, this is a conversation that I've stayed away from over the last years because I feel like in the past I didn't have the spiritual maturity to talk about this from a place of compassion and understanding. And so now that I'm sort of like a spiritual OG, I'll call it that, it's less triggering and I can see the bigger picture. Curious to know how you feel on this topic, or like in the past, did you also have some triggers with religion?
Oh yeah, because I feel like in my journey I would talk at people, and once I went to the transition from being Christian and being spiritual, I feel like almost unconsciously that I was better than people because I feel like people was stuck in that religious program, so I had a perception of them that was kind of like hierarchy.
Sure, like you're in a lower state of consciousness. I'm
Yeah.
enlightened now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, I want to talk about your upbringing. What was the role of religion in your formative years as a child?
Religion was very important in my my earlier childhood. We grew up Christian Baptist. We went to church, preacher, all that type of energy. It was something that was really good for me at a time.
Okay.
We would do like um, a lot of prayers, a lot of things of just things with the Christianity that it did serve me at that time, but after a while, something was like something's not fully aligning with me. So that's kind of my process. What was yours?
So I had a bit of a unique experience, and I've spoken about this not in great detail, like in interviews and things. But so my mom was Christian Baptist as well, but really just because that's how she grew up. Like we didn't actively go to church. She wasn't someone that was reading the Bible. It was more so just like, oh, we're Christian because most of our family is, right? So it wasn't like a strong imprint of that in my household. And my father was actually Muslim. So he converted to Islam when I was probably about 3 or 4 years old. And so through that, I got exposed to a completely different avenue of faith. And I would say from a very young age, like 4 or 5, that's what cracked me open in terms of being a seeker. You know, like I would go to my dad's house on the weekend and we're like going to the mosque and he's praying 5 times a day. And I'll share more, but my dad is also like a very much so radical person. So everything he did, it was like, it wasn't like a subtle, it was like, hey,
Right.
I'm Muslim. I want you to know I'm
Yeah,
Muslim.
like loud.
Yeah, very loud. So I just started to compare like these two worlds, and that's when the questioning started. When did you start questioning? Because I feel like, especially with Christianity, it can have this tight grip on us. Like, how did you even feel safe to
Yeah.
question?
I started questioning around high school. Like I just felt like when I used to go to church, I loved the choir. I loved the energy of that. But one thing that wasn't resonating is just like my family and a lot of other people that was Christian, we was in lack. You know what I'm saying? So it just made me feel like, okay, like, well, if God love us, why are we in this lack vibration? Why I feel like almost I still don't know who I am beyond just going to church, and how do I know how to move? So I started questioning in high school. However, I didn't have no other deep perspectives with spirituality that can be like, oh, I should do this, but I knew it was something
Like
more.
examples.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
I definitely
Yeah.
knew it was something more.
So, my exposure to the church was my mom would send my sister and I to church with my aunt. So, my aunt is a very, faithful Christian. She would go every Sunday, that type of thing, listen to gospel music in the car. And I just remember feeling so uncomfortable and it's like it was very performative to me. So I would be sitting there in these itchy tights and a dress thinking about
Not the itchy
like
tights.
why I'm like, well, why does every pastor or preacher sound the same? I'm like, do they go, is there a school you go to and learn how to do that? Or like people catching the Holy Ghost and like running around the church, and it was just and I think
Holy Ghost.
now understanding like being a super psychic being and like very sensitive, that energy, it was just like so overstimulating for
Yeah.
me. And then I think also when you have questions that are natural and normal and natural that any critical thinking person would have, such as, oh, well, if Jesus is the Son of God, then what does that make me? Am I like an
Yeah.
orphan? Like, that doesn't make sense. And asking people these questions and them not having answers. So the performative things that will go on, it just gave me a cult energy, and then also no one being able to ask or to answer these very, what seemed to me to be rational questions. It just put me in a very unsettled place.
Yeah, that makes complete sense because while you was talking, it made me just remember of other things that was like, what is this? Like the Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
Like people people will go to church, go to choir, and people singing, and then people, they like would catch some spirit. But I was a younger kid, and I never felt like I caught that spirit. So it made me question like, are they really catching the spirit or are they faking the spirit?
Right.
So
right.
it just something wasn't adding up, and then you got Jesus and then God, and Jesus is supposed to be God, but Jesus is supposed to be the Son of God.
It's a
So
lot.
who is God?
Right, right.
So what's the name? So it was confusion where it wasn't like an undeniable truth that I was like, it gotta be something more because something's not making sense.
I want to go back to what you said about lack, because this was definitely something that I also observed that created a deeper sense of questioning. One of the things for me within Christianity is that, or that I've noticed within Christianity, is that it seemed like people would have this high conviction on Sunday, but every day after that, they were doing blasphemous things, like going to the
Alcohol.
casino literally right after church, alcohol, right? All of the things that in their text, in their book, says
says.
not to do.
Exactly.
So why is it so difficult for, my thought process was, why is it so difficult for them to follow what's literally in their book? And when I would experience the energy of other religions like Islam or Buddhism and these other faiths that I started exploring as I got older, it just seemed like the daily practices of those religions, like people were actually living in that reality and not, I would say, like in less of a split vibration.
Yes, they was practicing what they was preaching.
Exactly.
Where with Christianity is like almost more contradictive.
And then I think, like the whole collection plate thing, like if you're in a church environment where most of these people, like you said, are living in lack and scarcity, but then they're expected to give these tithings. And I understand I would say the high vibrational original intention of that, which is to give back to your community.
Energy exchange. However, one thing that was like one of my biggest triggers of, my mom would give $100, $50, but we barely had food on the table. And then my mom would like almost be mad at me. You guys need to start giving tithe and offering. And in my mind, I'm like, how we gonna give tithe and offering? We don't got food.
Right.
We don't got bare necessities for ourselves. If anything, they need to be giving us money. So a lot of those things, it just made me like, I get the love for God. I get the inspiration from God. I get all that. But why people are in lack? Why people are not happy? And why is this tech or why isn't this religion is not helping people to be just happy?
Sure. And then I think when you see a pastor or a preacher, and I know for some people who might be Catholic, a priest, whatever it might be, and their lives seem to be in place, like maybe they're driving a nice car, they live in a nice home. I think it's very natural to question, well, why is it that they're living like this and everyone else that they're preaching to seems to be in distress or
Yes.
despair or financial lack?
Yes. Hey, wow, this is a big one. I feel like that's like almost like a worship gene. You know what I'm saying? Like preachers, it's like they're being worshipped. They're the one with the money. They're the one with the hierarchy, and we are less. And then we're like trying to be in that reality like them, but they're like almost keeping us down in that reality. Because I feel like the intention of Christianity, of Jesus, Jesus was wanted us to be like him.
Right.
To understand that everything I have, you have too.
Sure.
But the Christian religion, to me, bring out the perception that like we're not all the same.
The separation.
Yes, or we're lower. And I think that's the time loop, and that's the lower conscience that religious kind of give
Frequency.
people.
Yeah. But I think it's important for me to say that source, God, is everywhere all the time. And I think in any faith and in any religion, God is there, right? It might not be at the highest frequency of consciousness or information that's available, but there have been pastors and different types of those types of folks who I can definitely see that they're channeling.
Absolutely,
and
I agree.
They're delivering a message that people on that level of consciousness can receive.
Yes.
Everybody's not going to be able to receive what me and you may transmit in a channeling or
they can't hear no light language.
It's just not. They're not in the vibrational bandwidth to be receptive to that, to God source coming through in that way.
Right.
So I just want to say I know there are many faiths, beliefs out there, and this is not a condemnation.
Absolutely not.
Because
Absolutely not.
understanding soul contracts, I truly know in my heart that all paths lead home.
Absolutely.
And this is why I said when I was younger, when I like first awakened, you want to just drop that ether on everybody, like wake up, wake up. And I'm totally at peace and comfortable with people walking the path that they need to, because I know how this story ends, so I'm okay with it.
Absolutely. I want to ask you, do you feel like it was any positive things that happened in your life from being in that Christian religious timeline?
Interesting question. Like if I can recall a moment of maybe calling on Jesus and experiencing like a miracle.
Or what being in that religion got you to almost where you're here today, where you you know what, this is the piece of this religion that helped me to where I'm at today.
I really don't want this to come off the wrong way, but I feel like I'm a little bit different in a sense that I've always been a seeker. So because I had that exposure to my dad, and this is a man who taught himself, this is a black man from Detroit, born in the 70s, raised in the inner city of Detroit, around all types of chaos. And in his conversion, he's someone who taught himself how to speak Arabic fully, right? So somebody that was like so devotional and just intelligent and just like that radicalness I was talking about earlier. I think seeing him have so much conviction in that as a black man and witnessing just his intellect and the level of peace that gave him, but then being at my mom's house and like around her family or that side of the family, and just having these two contrasting religions, it made me a seeker from a young age. So I can't really say that there was anything specific in Christianity that I feel like has molded me. Okay, actually, what I will say is I feel like the love of Jesus always resonated with me.
Same.
So to this day, and we're going to talk about this later with past lives that we've recalled with Jesus, but the spirit of that being, not the church, not the politicalness that comes with religion, but Jesus as a figure, as a being, always resonated deep in my spirit. And I can remember being super young and I was like reading the Bible in my like seeker way, just trying to piece things together. I just wanted to know the truth, and I felt his spirit. I did feel his spirit. So I do believe that people who are still actively engaging in the Bible, I do believe that the presence of his spirit can speak through some of the information.
I get it. I
And you
get it.
know why I'm saying some.
Yeah, some. Yeah. We gonna just keep it as that.
No, expand on that. Expand on that.
Well, I personally think that some people who are in that religious realm, the Christian realm, they use Jesus to say they are enlightened and use people's energy to kind of be almost in a God complex type of energy, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like I feel like some preachers or even some churches, they just want the money. They want the financial of the spiritual energy of the purpose of it, but they want the financial of what it's doing to their ego.
Okay.
You know, and I feel like that energy, that if a person or a collective of people are in that church, it could put them in a energy of feeling like they have to pray and beg, feeling like that they're not God, feeling like they are almost having to beg source for money or beg source just to be happy. It just put people in a different way of living, and that's why I feel like collectively a lot more people than it's a lot more people lost than it's more people happy in their
Okay.
happy state of conscious.
Sure.
That makes sense?
Yeah, and where I was going in terms of the text, and I would say this is one of the discrepancies for me that triggered this deep questioning about religion, is the text has been altered.
Yes.
And
It's a
I
man-made
think you
text.
you cannot deny that there are definitely parts of the Bible that talk about God being basically vengeful
A jealous God.
and basically like a killer and all these things. And I even think there's so much about the suppression of women. And I think to this day, like in some churches, women are not allowed to hold positions of power. And
Or
they're
to
like,
speak, yeah, like
yeah,
as a
and to
preacher.
speak, right? There are like stories of women being stoned to death, and not just in Christianity, right? This is
yeah.
embedded across many different religions. But I think like when I started doing deep research and I discovered the Council of Nicaea, I believe, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, and there was literally a council that decided what would be removed from the Bible and what would be kept. And so I see the Bible as a compilation of old texts that we don't know from what era,
Yeah.
on top of like new, we'll just say like channeled teachings and gospel, and it's all jumbled up. But then there's also implanted information to program people.
Yes, to keep them at a state of loss and keep them in a state of confusion.
Yeah.
And I think it's strategically done because we can just even break it down like this with the Bible. It's translated to English. English is one of the newest languages it is. So that means how we are even
Interpreting.
it is a lower vibration. It's not the highest vibration. It's not the original vibration. It's literally phone call, and it went to like 20 phone calls later, and this is where we
Right,
at.
right. Like the game of telephone where
Yes.
like by the time the last person says what they heard, it's completely different.
It's completely
Yeah.
different.
So before we move on to like what triggered our awakenings, I want to just talk about this one last piece with, if we look at how religion and politics have been intertwined, the like preachers and clergymen had the most power and political power, right? Union, or what do we say? State and religion were one. They were
Yeah.
united. They weren't separate entities like as they are now
Yeah.
in the United States. They're separate, right? But for thousands of years, they were one. So if you were, if you were someone who was delivering the gospel, you were the middleman for people,
Yeah. You
for
were the messenger.
between them and God.
Yeah.
And they couldn't
Messiah.
have a personal relationship with
Yeah.
God. They couldn't have
They had to come through you.
right. And just think about the level of ego that can create in a unconscious being.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier of it puts people like preachers in a hierarchy and it keep people of them worshiping them. And what spirit source wants us to get into is the law of one. It's the unity consciousness, and that's through spirituality.
And I really want people to understand that in the age of Aquarius, your goal is not to follow Jesus or to follow anyone. It's to become your own Christ, to become your own Buddha, which is just a frequency.
Yes.
Christ consciousness is a frequency.
Absolutely.
It's a vibration.
Yes. This is also what, let's talk biblical terms, the end days.
Yeah.
The end days is when the age of Pisces was ending and we was moving to the age of Aquarius. So this is what the time we are in now. The age of Pisces is the age of believing. This is the age of religion. So this is when Hindu, the Quran, Islam, all these type of things came into that cycle. But now it's for us to understand that we are all source. We are that. Yeah. Our body is actually our church. Our church is actually our temple. So what does that mean? This is a superhuman computer. So all the stuff Jesus, all the stuff Mary Magdalene, all the stuff Buddha was doing, we can do all these things too. And now when we unlock the conscious that we can do this, this is what the age of Aquarius is, and this is what we're moving into.
And I think just in my own experience, there are stories in the Bible and parables and analogies and certain information that is correct or in alignment with what I personally know to be true.
Yeah.
But then you have the implanted information.
Yes.
And this is what creates confusion in the spirit, right? You may pick up on a truth, but then it's side by side with untruth. And I think that's what makes it so difficult to rely on most sacred texts, what we consider to be sacred texts, as the one and only truth.
Yes. So what would you recommend for the people listening? Should they read the Bible? Should they read the Bible left and right? Should they read the Bible just symbolism? Should they ask their spirit from within what's not resonating? How should they move with the Bible?
I think the key here is to absorb with discernment and learn how to recognize what is happening in your body. Your own higher self and source will communicate to you what is in alignment and what is not. Meaning you very well may turn to a page in the Bible and source wants to speak to you through that particular page on that day. I think I see this universal language that can happen through any medium, but discernment. If it makes you contract, if you feel fearful, if you feel like I'm going to get struck down by lightning if I don't do XYZ, understand that that is not the true unconditional eternal love of all that is, was, and ever shall be. That is something that man has misinterpreted or implanted for personal gain.
Drop mic.
So what was the tipping point when you went, this is not it?
A lot of people probably don't like this, but after high school, I had an opportunity to be a Division I football player and play at Utah State University, and I went to a place where it was a Mormon state.
Oh yeah.
So I went to a place where actually the state, the religion is over the state.
It's so integrated there. That's right.
It's very integrated. Like it's only 1.2% of black people in the whole state. So this gave me a culture shock. So I seen how my religious, you can say, programs was living in me and how other people there was not living by those things. And some of these things were really good for them and some of these things were really bad. For example, I went to a transition my first year at Utah State where I lived with all white people. And for me, it's not that I had a problem with white people, but you know, you have a perception of white people when you grew up in a
predominantly black, yeah.
Yes. So these people gave me a whole different level of love. They gave me a whole different level of elevation. They gave me a whole different level of not judging who I was. Where I came from an environment where we're very judgmental, just from Christian religion, and these people, they were not actually Mormon. My roommates they was just kind of like white hippies in a way.
Right.
So these were people that wasn't consciously saying they were spiritual, but they were so spiritual that they gave me a spiritual awakening from just living with them for 1 year. So in that process, they gave me to like, okay, what is my religion? What is my spirit? Because what I'm coming from, what I learned, these people are not like that. So it made me start to question like, what is really God?
Yeah. I think I feel like that's such an interesting journey for you with going from St. Louis and just catapulting into this environment where Mormonism is the dominant culture. I think people don't really grasp it, like if they've never been to Utah or if they just don't understand. And yeah, we went to Utah once, but I haven't been around it, but I love reality
Yeah.
TV. So I see like all
It's a
that
whole
stuff.
different
And yeah, it's a
breed.
whole different they have like some shows that I've seen.
Like
and
Utah's a whole different realm
yeah,
within itself.
it's like the religion is fully integrated in their everyday life. So I can see that making you kind of just like question things.
Absolutely. Like it made me just like, what is God? Like what is source? Like what is God? Because they saying God is a certain way, but my God that I say is a certain way, but something's not right. So it kind of got me where I wasn't really that religious when I was in college because it was too many contradicting perspectives and beliefs.
Yeah. This is making me remember exactly how I felt when I was a child and I would be with my dad and go to the mosque and engage in all the Islamic practices, but then also go to church with my aunt. When you have two people that you love who believe something different, naturally you're going to think, well, what is the truth?
Yes.
There can't be one truth.
Yes.
It just is, it can't be possible, and so I think the real eye opener for people should be whatever you believe, understand that that's just one dimension, one chamber of consciousness, the way that you are experiencing reality.
Absolutely.
And once that unlocked within me, I went into that exact same state of being you're talking about, where I didn't need to associate with a religion. I was doing my own thing. I was like, I like a little bit of what they got going on in some of the Eastern mythology. Okay, I like some of the things in Christianity, like the concept of this supreme unconditional love. I like some of the things in the Islamic faith, and I just jumbled them all up, and I would just tell people I practice my own religion, and that worked for me. I think this is a great segue into psychedelics, because what was happening with me is at this conclusion that I arrived to was that God was speaking through so many different religions and faith, and the truth is really just unity and love. But I think when you have a psychedelic experience, when you have a psychedelic experience, you have the experiential understanding of what that consciousness is.
Yes, it puts you at an altered state of consciousness where you can no longer deny the things that you are seeing from that altered state through psychedelics. So would you like to talk about this, of how you had a revelation of your spirituality through psychedelics?
At the time, this was 2013. I had went off to college and things started amplifying really quickly. It's almost like I needed to be out of my home for like my real spiritual awakening to start happening. And this is when I started just exploring different religions. Other information came into my awareness, and I started just coming up with my own conclusion. But then I had a close friend at the time who goes, "Hey, like you understand all of this conceptually, but you need an experience." And that's what led to like my LSD. I'm calling it now my LSD awakening. And I've talked about this so many times. So just really quickly, I knew nothing about psychedelics. I hadn't done any research. I don't for me at least, like Black people were not doing LSD, so it was not even on my radar. I stumble into this experience and I just completely die. I have an ego death. And funny thing about this, I just recalled this today. When I was being resorbed back into source, like eternity of all there is, and my separate character personality just died, and I went into the nothingness. I felt the presence of all the ascended masters, and so Jesus was there, like his spirit, his energy. And I remember hearing, this is what enlightenment is. This is what I taught. This was the state of being that I accomplished. It was the oneness with God, source, all that is. This is what it actually means to be a Christ. And so I'm like, holy shit, I think I'm enlightened. And I know like you're not supposed to say that, but that was my experience. And so yeah, that was a huge part of my awakening. It was like a buildup, right? And I've had many other experiences after that don't even involve psychedelics, just direct contact with source.
That makes sense.
What have been your experiences with psychedelics?
Well, I had this one significant experience. Went through a law of attraction, had awakening from that, and I end up talking to my brother about psychedelics, and he was like saying to me like, "Hey, when you want to really know something, you got something on your thoughts, take some shrooms." And I was like, "Okay, noted." So something happened where end up meeting this hippie guy who teach people how to tap into psychedelics, and he taught me about this dude named Baba Kalindi. Ika, how do you say his last name? Iwa. It's like IYI, but I'm probably butchering it. And this dude talk about macrodoses. So macrodoses is more than 3.5. And Terrence McKenna talks about if you really want to go on a journey, the first thing you should do is take 5 minutes, and that's the start of the journey. And I was like, what is these people talking about? So I planned a journey for December 21st, 2021 of my first macrodose experience. So I took 7 grams. And in that experience on 7 grams
Of psilocybin mushrooms.
psilocybin shrooms, I took that journey and I had a crystal, a clear quartz crystal. And I was laying down and I was listening to Bob Marley. And in that energy that I was in, I started just breathing, and then I kept on breathing, and then I just felt this energy where I didn't feel my body. And then I didn't feel the crystal. And then I went into this energy where I was just space.
Right.
Mind you, my mind at the time was like, what is going on? What is going on? I'm in space. But in the essence, I was staying connected to my breath, because a teacher said, when you're on these macrodoses, the only thing you have is your breath. So you stay in tune to your breath. So I'm staying in tune to my breath, but in the same time, my energy, I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
This is crazy. This is insane. And a voice told me, you are everything and nothingness.
Yes.
And it made me understand that you are space.
And time, yeah.
And you are a timeless being.
Yeah.
And we're gonna let you go through experience where you're not even in your body. And I was like, okay, I get the spirituality. Okay, I get the psilocybin. This is what people need, because I think for me, without that, I don't think I could have really grounded how to be embodied of your spiritual like Jesus or Buddha.
Sure. Yeah. And this timelessness that you can, it's so interesting because you can experience time and timelessness simultaneously. You're everywhere but nowhere at the same time. And that is the conundrum of what God, source, universal consciousness is. Yeah.
Everything.
This quantum consciousness. And so I could see how every single path, no matter Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, whatever, Jewish, that this was where everybody was going. This home, right? This frequency of source would be the home of your soul. And so coming out of some of these experiences, that's when I say I was like a little bit more spiritually mature, and I just understood.
Yeah, you just know.
Yeah. And so I like to explain this in a sense of, if you were going to throw somebody a surprise party, would you want to ruin it? Would you want to ruin the surprise? Would you want to tell them what's on the way? And that's how I see people who are in other states of consciousness. It's like, because I know what exists and what awaits, I'm like, that's so fun and
love
so
that
cool.
terminology, yeah.
Yeah, that's so fun and cool that you're going to have this massive truth hit you either when you transition, so you leave this reality, or maybe in this lifetime. And I think that's a powerful approach for people who are spiritual to take.
So do you think people who are more in the religious program need something like a plant medicine, a psilocybin, an LSD to go to an alter state to understand spirituality, where they can ground it and they can fully understand it and overstand it?
No, I don't think that is for everyone. I don't think psychedelics and plant medicine is for everyone.
I agree.
I don't think everyone
I agree.
has the bandwidth,
The mental
to
capacity,
have
yes.
reality literally shatter around you and to be able to stay sane. What I will say is the ultimate objective is that you experience love. And you have high vibrational beings in every faith. And how you can recognize one is, always ask yourself, if you want to know how enlightened somebody is, how happy are they? How joyful are they? And how much love do they embody and exude? You know, I think like when people spend time in my energy and your energy, it's very clear that we are happy people.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I feel like that's the standard. It doesn't matter what faith you're using as your medium to connect with all that is. Your goal should be to experience more love in your life. Be a being of love.
Yes.
That should be the intention.
No matter what religion, what spiritual you want to say you are, being love and being that happy state, that's the God Christ conscious state.
Yeah. I think what makes that challenging, like this word love, what is that?
Yes.
It's so abstract, it's so esoteric, and I think most people have never actually experienced love.
Unconditional love.
Yeah, and that was something that I realized, like in these direct experiences with Source, whether it was through meditation or through psychedelics and plant medicine or through something coming out of someone else's mouth at the right time, like Source channeling through them to me. It started to become very clear to me that Earth is a place that is conditional.
Yes.
When it comes to love.
Absolutely.
And so how do people expand their awareness to the fact that universal love, this unconditional love, mind-blowing love, like you can't even fathom this love.
Yeah.
How can someone grasp that if all they know is conditional love? And I do think that is the issue with religion, is that it's still within a construct with limitations.
Yes, because it's saying, well, if you have sex before marriage, you
Hell.
are going to hell.
Yeah.
If you do this as a woman,
Hell.
you are going to hell.
Yes.
If you read this type of text, you are going to hell. You do astrology, you do meditation, you do yoga, you are going to hell.
Yeah.
So that puts people in a state of fear. That puts people in a state of survival. And that's keeping people in a state of conditional.
Yeah. And fear is a polarity to love. So I want to talk about spiritual warfare, because the agenda has been to keep people on this planet in that vibration of fear that you're talking about.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on spiritual warfare?
Spiritual warfare is understanding that this is a reality of thought patterns. This is a thought reality. We think everything into existence. So a lot of people are in a low, malfunctioning way of thinking. They think about what they're going to eat. They think about after Monday through Friday, what they're going to do on the weekend. They're thinking about just limited ways of thinking. They're not thinking about how they could build an empire, how they could build a legacy, how they can travel the world with other people and stuff like that. They're not thinking that way. So we want to get people into a higher thought pattern. So what people need to do, they need to release trauma from what they learned from their mother, what they learned from their father, what they learned from their environment, and shift into things that they want to be and what they fully desire.
When I think about spiritual warfare, and I want to take it there, um, I think about fallen angels, also known as demons or entities. Those are very real entities in the non physical realm. And their whole objective is to keep individuals in a state of separation from God, source, supreme love.
Yes.
What this looks like you being spiritually attacked, what this looks like is if I don't do XYZ, I will go to hell.
Correct.
If I don't conform to a certain belief or practice, God will reject me. And so oftentimes when I'm doing like shamanic quantum healing with people and we're traveling within their subconscious mind, usually 99% of the time, the core running program is a fear of not being loved or the belief that they are not lovable. And most of this comes from religious indoctrination that's embedded within the collective psyche.
Yes. So a lot of people feel like they need even to perform. They need to do something.
Earn.
Just to experience unconditional love. And I feel like that is the spiritual warfare on consciousness.
Yes, it is a war on your consciousness. And this can also look like negative self-thoughts.
Yes.
Right? This is another way these entities like to work to get you believe, well, I'm not good enough, I'm too fat, I'm broke, I'm this, I'm ugly, I'm like all these things that people are thinking at least 10,000 thoughts per day. And you know the percentage of them that are negatively implanted by these entities. Now somebody might be asking like, well, why are they doing this? I have something I could speak to, but I want to know from your perspective, what do you think the intention of these lower vibrational entities are?
They are pulling off your life force energy. They're putting off your creation godlike energy. When you are in an energy where you're doing what you're told and doing what your soul is being called to you to do, you're going to be drained. You're going to feel lost. Like, this is why a lot of people on Mondays, they hate Mondays because they don't want to go to work. But they have to go to work because they have to make money. But imagine if a person was like doing what they love and it gave them so much abundance. They will love waking up on Monday. They will love waking up and taking care of their kids or giving their kids cereal or having a happy shower than having a sad shower because it's like, oh, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go to that energy because they're doing what they told because this is what they have to do to survive. So we need to get people into more of a, what do you desire? What makes you happy? What would you do for free and you're really good at it? The more we get people into that, you're going to see a shift in the collective. You're going to see a shift in religion. You're going to see more an embodiment on this state because people are such in a state of doing what they're told than doing what their soul is called to do.
And I think one of the ways that people can, you laughed at me the other day when I said this, I called it, how can we prepare people for spiritual combat? You thought that was so funny. Well, but this is real.
Yes.
There's a war on consciousness. Okay, you need to put your spiritual armor on. You need to prepare for combat. And the way that you do this is start observing. Is what I'm thinking and entertaining, does this sound or feel like something that would be inspired by an unconditionally loving God or source? Or is it a trickster energy? Is it an energy that would like to leverage my life force energy as fuel? And so what I've seen through just being a shaman and traveling dimensions is that a lot of these entities don't believe that they're worthy of love, meaning they've worked through people and caused so much chaos that it's hard for them to reascend back into light. You see, everything is light.
Everything is light.
Everything is source.
Everything is
But
source.
there's high vibrational and there's low vibrational.
Yep.
And what free will is that we have the choice to experience both. But you have some of these beings and energy that they might go so far down on the lower end of the spectrum that it becomes almost impossible to return back into the light. And this these are the ones, the fallen angels essentially, who just keep up the chaos. So there have actually been instances where I have helped entities return back into the light by showing them this is the loop, this is what you're doing. Yeah, maybe you've done some things, but it really is, in the grand scheme, a part of universal consciousness experiencing itself.
Absolutely.
You have to forgive, and basically what Source wants everybody to know is, Source is just saying this through my mouth, your reconciliation with me will take place, period.
Yes.
Any energy, every
everything
being,
will be forgiven.
everything
Everything
is
will be
already
forgiven.
in the moment
Yes.
forgiven, because there was never truly a trespass to begin with. It was just an experience.
Absolutely. And you need experience to gain wisdom. And the most powerful thing that you can do in this earthly reality is go through experience and gain the wisdom. If you don't go through experience, how would you know? How would you know what not to do or what to do if you don't go through experience of like, oh,
Right.
I actually shouldn't do that again.
Right, exactly. I want to share this story. I had a friend in the past who was an Akashic Records channeler, such as yourself, and extremely clairvoyant. And she spoke about how she was like, yeah, like when I came out of my awakening and like this whole field became open to me, I went to a bar, and she's like, what I saw these entities hanging out around people, around their body, waiting for them to be in enough of a weakened state, and then they would basically kind of hop into their body and take over. Like, when you black out from drinking, what do you think is controlling you at that point? Like, you lose control over your motor skills. So sharing that to say, the objective of lower vibrational entities is that they want to take you over. They want to be in that physical experience of, and this is why people do things like drink excessively.
Wow.
When they have like an entity attachment. This is why they might be addicted to sex. This is why they might overeat or be lazy. You see, these entities, what you'll always realize is they have an obsession with something.
Yep.
There's no
Obsessed.
moderation. It's a lot. I think we call that gluttony. Yeah, it's just this excessive. So you might be listening to this right now and realizing, oh my gosh, I'm addicted to sugar.
Yeah.
You could be being impacted by an entity, and it's as simple as, I'm taking back control over my spirit, universal consciousness, all there is, I release this now. Everyone has the power to do that
Right now. And
right now.
Release instantaneously.
Yeah. Another aspect of spiritual warfare that we have to talk about is the suppression of feminine consciousness.
Let's get into
I
it.
think people need to hear from a masculine, from a male. What is your viewpoint on the patriarchy that is ruled for thousands of years?
Trigger warning, but we got to talk. We have to talk this truth. What's been going on this planet for thousands of years? We have used women for their sexual power. We have used women to use their spiritual gifts for our own gain. We have used our physical attributes and used it against women. We have used the power that we have with politics, weapons, people. We have done all this against women to keep women at a lower state of being. A lot of women right now, they feel like they can't even lead. Where do you think that comes from? This patriarchal system. Because we've been told that a man has to be the leader. Because if you think about it, in America, how many women presidents have it been? None. Not one woman, maybe a vice president, but no the president. So what do you think that do to a woman's subconscious? I cannot lead. Men are leaders. I need to do everything for the man. So when you even think about marriages, what do you think women talk about? I need to find me a man that got some money or got some stability, because they are told, they are being shown that the man is everything. There's a leader. And then when you think about spirituality, do you ever hear a she?
Yeah.
Do you ever hear A prophet that's a she?
Yeah.
Do you see this in books? You do not.
Yeah.
So what does that do to the woman? What does that do to the little girl? I cannot be an astronaut. I need to be a wife. And if I'm a wife and he make a lot of money, he want to mess with other women, I gotta just allow this to happen. So these are things that is happening collectively with women that patriarchs we created because what might makes what's right. And this is the paradigm that we're shifting out of because we need to shift into more of a gentleman and understand that the woman is a spiritual leader. Women are the leaders internally. The men are the leaders externally. The man, like, they build.
Yeah.
They build the trees. But who got the vision? It's the woman. But we have been, and when I say we, women have been in the energy of suppression of that teaching because they've been in the energy. Do what you told. Don't do what you know what's in your soul.
I love how you spoke about the subconscious feminine psyche. Because even if someone's not directly telling you you can't be an astronaut or a scientist or a chemist or etc., if you don't have representation of that, if you don't have an example of that, if you don't see women in positions of power and leadership who are creating their own money, here's the thing, while also being a mother and a wife, right? These things don't have to compete with each other.
Yes.
Because when we're doing that, we're basically saying women only have the intelligence to do one or the other.
Exactly.
I'm a wife, a CEO, and a mom. I think we can do it all, okay? So this is about the rebirth of feminine Christ consciousness. We've only heard about Christ consciousness through the lens of the masculine perspective. What we're going to see happen rapidly is more feminines experiencing direct contact with source, being universal channelers for source, and this is going to be the rise of the feminine Christ consciousness on the planet.
I love this. I want to talk about something with what you just said with this new ascension that women are going through. What is Mary Magdalene got to do with this ascension?
Yeah, I'm so happy you brought that up. So if we're looking at Mary Magdalene's story according to the Bible, and I just want to say, because I know some of you are biblical scholars and you really do research, okay? I'm a channeler, I'm a psychic, I'm an intuitive, I read frequencies, I have visions, I remember things that have actually happened. So you might not be able to find this in a book. Just want to put that out there, okay? Because I know how people like to play in this realm.
Well, the research,
the facts and listen, okay, this is universal intelligence. According to the Bible, in that text, she was a woman who Jesus casted, I want to say it was like 12 demons out of, or something like that, maybe 7. I don't know the specific number.
Yeah.
And she was a prostitute, and she became one of his apostles, or I don't think a disciple. I don't think women were allowed to be disciples, like if we're talking about the Bible.
The Bible text.
Yeah,
yes.
right, about the biblical text, through biblical text. And so, yeah, what I've come to remember is that Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene. They had children, and she was a huge part of his ministry. And other disciples, and I'll say the religious leaders at that time, would see how he respected her, how he allowed her to speak, treated her as an equal, and some of them didn't actually like it. But for her protection, right, she wasn't able to, let's say, lead the whole thing, but she was right alongside him, and he would share his teachings from source with her. And so she was right alongside him spreading the gospel, and even after his death, she went on to do that. So people need to understand that the church tainted her entire story, right? Wanted to paint her as the prostitute, the one that allured Jesus right into his demise, to attack the feminine consciousness.
Absolutely.
And also knowing that she was going to continue his work after he passed away, which she did. We'll talk about that later. But is this resonating with you?
This resonates to me, and I'm gonna pull some information from the Akashic of
Field, yeah.
what source is saying, what this really means. What she went through with Jesus was she was giving Jesus a Kundalini awakening. He had an awakening through sexual act with his wife. He got downloads, he got information, he got codes, he got books from just them being in the act of unconditional love through Kundalini. But what they wanted to show you, prostitution. So what did they do to sexual energy? They wanted to put it on a dark polarity of it, that she was a prostitute. No, she was a Kundalini teacher. She was a Kundalini master. She knew how to give people things. She knew how to shift to time, space, and dimension just from Kundalini. And this is what women in those times used to do. They knew how to embody their essence. And their essence of source is Kundalini. You are a walking orgasm.
Well, what I want to say here is that at this particular time where women did not have power, and women, I mean, really could not speak, hold positions of leadership, etc., there was a small underground group of what we would call oracles and priestesses who studied ancient mystery school teachings. And that's what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Some of those practices that were that some people still had access to. Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene were two women who are actually a part of the Isis lineage and were oracles.
Yes.
So even Mother Mary, she prophesied Jesus's birth as a psychic intuitive.
And to give people more of a deeper understanding what is an oracle, this is a person who they are a knower. They get knowing from just their third eye, where they just know things. So it was a bunch of women at those times, like the Oracle of Delphi. They used to hold the wealth, and the man at those times, they used to hold the power of the woman that was holding that energy of the information that they would give to the collective of that civilization.
Yeah, I'm so happy you mentioned like oracles of Delphi. In our previous episode, I spoke about my past lifetime as a priestess in ancient Greece. And what you'll notice is that these women have always existed, but the power structure would, for example, like the king or the queen or the royalty would use them to their advantage.
Correct.
But then what are they putting in the Bible? Oh, it's blasphemous to talk about spirit or to, engage with these psychic type things, all the while, right? Using these women with these gifts for their own gain and benefit. You know what I mean? Like they kept
patriarchal manipulation,
oracle around, or a prophetess around. That was a very real thing.
And I think this is a big thing of what we are moving away from. It's a patriarchal manipulation.
Yeah.
It's patriarchal, and I'm not a person this way, but just man's in power. They know how to use their resources to get what they want and limit people to have access of those infinite resources. So it looks a certain way, and they're looked as God. They looked as the messenger.
And I want people to really think about this. The feminine is intuitive. It's a quantum knowing, a quantum connection beyond logic. The masculine rules the mind, the physical, and these two work together. So in the distorted masculine energy, it's, well, if she's going to have that connection beyond what's logical, how can we control that?
Yes.
How can we suppress her intuition?
Yes.
How can we get her to shut down her heart so she's not receiving messages from God, source, spirit, creator? And if we look at our planet, that's why it's been in chaos, because the feminine has been disconnected from leadership and from intuition.
So that puts us collectively as a planet in balance. We're not.
It's imbalanced.
Balance. And we have to be balanced, because in the laws of the Hermetics, it says that everyone has masculine and feminine, and you cannot have feminine without masculine and masculine without feminine. So we're shutting off the feminine. We're shutting off also the masculine energy of the feminine, and it's keeping us hyper patriarchal, hyper masculine, and that is not serving us. And you can see as in today.
Oh yeah, because the feminine is all about seasons and cycles. So me and you have been channeling. There's going to be a huge reconnection that people have with the moon, which governs intuition, subconscious mind, and like it's a feminine energy principle. And we have something on the way, the full moon club coming.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
But not to get off track here. Yeah, this feminine hemisphere in our brain is being activated.
Yes.
And so, speaking of that, I think this will be the perfect time to open up the collective Akashic records. And we're going to quantum time travel to the timeline where Jesus, Yeshua, was alive along with Mary Magdalene. And we're just going to see what is ready to be revealed.
Okay.
Okay.
Calling on my spiritual staff. Take us to the timeline of Yahshua and Mary Magdalene. Timeline is now anchoring.
Whew.
We are now in Mesopotamia. Biolocation. I'm seeing temples.
So I'm seeing like caravans of like carrying people and goods, and I'm seeing just a group of people that traveled. And so this is actually something that source has told me, but I'm seeing it now. 300 plus people traveling in a group with Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and you and I were a part of this, just going to different towns, giving the gospel, basically, like the truth of source. And yeah, I just see caravans, horses, just this traveling of people.
Yes, I do too. And I see us giving these enlightening messages for people. And it's helping people to understand the embodiment of being masculine and your feminine. So in these timelines, we did help people to understand how to be balanced. However, we didn't have technology like we do now. So you couldn't see it on TV. You couldn't get like different books like we have now, but people would actually give it from the word. So people actually had to remember the word of what the person was speaking to them.
And like this traveling and delivering ministry. So I'm having this vision right now of Mary Magdalene escaping in the night. And she's getting on the boat with their children. So some folks may not know that Jesus and Mary Magdalene did have children. I'm seeing 2 children right now. And after the death, the crucifixion, the church did seek to kill her. They wanted to kill her. So there were several helpers, you know, a part of the movement who assisted with this fleeing. And yeah, I'm just seeing them live on a boat for a long time, trying to get to eventually where they went to was south of France.
Yes, I'm seeing, they're showing me why they left and why they had to kind of go into where they had to be on the ship for a long time. The Mary Magdalene teachings that she was doing with Jesus was so powerful that they had to run because people wanted to stop them. People wanted to actually kill her and other women that used to do things like her. So there's the protection of the divine feminine codes that they was given to the collective at that time.
Sure.
That even at that time, they was like, there's going to come a time where women going to be able to lead and we're not going to have to keep it secret. It's going to be able to be seen and it's also going to be for free.
Yeah. So the records are kind of closing for me right now, but what I'll say is, in a practical sense, what people can take away from this is there's so much hidden information that is yet to be revealed.
Yes.
And stay tuned. There's going to be so much more that comes through, us as channelers, but also other people. And I want to recommend two books that I know to be
Oh yeah.
uh, pretty accurate. So you want to read the Sophia Code. It gives the account of Mary Magdalene, like a channeled text on her life, but also other divine feminine ascended masters. That's a good one. And then one that's undeniably accurate. The Sapiential Discourses by Elliot Eli Jackson. There's an excerpt where Jesus comes through in channels, and then there's a separate excerpt where Mary Magdalene comes through in channels. And you'll find some of this information that we're talking about, but largely most of it is yet to be revealed.
Yes.
Any text or final thoughts you want to share?
Any books that I want to recommend, those the same books. One
Okay.
book I do recommend when it comes to matriarchal leading that I think will be good, and this could be more of like a reference book, like a Bible, and this what you will get activation is a book called Metu Neter. The translation is basically Mother Nature. This is when women led in ancient Kemet, and this is the matriarchal system. It's called Metu Neter, Metuneter,
Yeah.
and you'll be able to find that book.
And I want to give like a final piece of advice for anyone who may be questioning religion or like transitioning from being a religious person to maybe more of a spiritual person. Like, what can we share with them?
Is an undeniable truth that's in your body. If it's an undeniable truth, it's going to give you something in your body. You're going to get goosebumps. Your body's going to shake. It's going to do something to you to confirm that this is truth. Second thing, you are in a happy state. If you feel like you are almost in like a work state, or you feel like you are in a lower state or a confused state, whatever you reading, whatever religion you are in, is probably not serving you no more. So you need something deeper.
Sure. I love that. So basically, to summarize, look to your own state of being, and that will let you know if you're living in alignment.
Absolutely. And this is very simple, practical understandings that you guys can figure out on your own.
I would say if you're in this transition or confused or still questioning things, okay, I'm hearing Source say, ask for confirmation. We have the
I love
power
this.
to do that.
Love
Ask
this.
and say, Source, I need to feel your love. I need to feel your presence. I'm struggling to discern the truth because we spoke about spiritual warfare. There's a lot of energies who don't want you to remember who you really are. As Source, as a fractal of that consciousness, ask for protection, ask for the right people, ask for the right information. Okay, the angels are coming in and they're saying, ask us for help, right? People don't use their angels enough.
Yes.
And you simply say, high vibrational angels, right? Because there are high angels and low angels. You want to say, high vibrational angels, please assist me with whatever you would like assistance with. And when you witness for yourself, this is why this is so important. When you have a direct experience for yourself, it's no longer a belief, and it becomes a knowing.
A knowing.
And Source's desire is that we all know God and universal supreme love directly within our own being. So that's what I would say.
Man, I think that was lovely that you gave that. I think this is what people need, and I think people who listen to this podcast today, they gonna be definitely transformed.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you for hanging out with us. We will be back with another episode. Peace.